All right, I know I am kicking the hornet's nest even getting into this, so I'm saying this in advance. If you want to tell me I'm a terrible person for my opinions on this, I have heard it all before in 2014, 2015. Spare me. That means you, Hassan Piker fans. I don't want to hear it. Don't bother leaving the nasty comment. It's not going to matter. I'm talking about this because these things matter acutely to me, not the personal lives of people I don't even know, the treatment of things along gendered lines where gaming is concerned, because, well, these things seem beneficial to women in the short term. They actually long term hurt us in that we are not being seen as fully functional adults who are culpable for our behavior. Before I begin, this is going to get rough. Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron. Patreon.com/LeannaK. If you want these real talks, knowing I'm going to catch shit because, oh God, I'm not just, we were always at war with Oceania. Support. I would appreciate it, okay? Because back in 2014-ish, it sort of roiled for a year. There was this thing called Gamergate that started because a guy accused his girlfriend, I'm not using names because reasons, but accused his girlfriend of infidelity with multiple guys. Some of those guys were games journalists who had covered her. Now, originally, it made it sound like there was a lot more positive coverage than there was. It actually turned out that it was just a few things here and there, but it unspooled into all this stuff about the really cozy relationships that this game developer, female game developer, had with members of the press that in the ex-boyfriend's mind went over the line. Now, I remember clearly reading that post he put up and going, he's saying it wasn't that she slept with other guys, it's that she lied about it. And I was like, dude, it's perfectly okay if you're upset that she had sex with other guys. Good for you on being big about this, but I'm not sure I totally buy it. Jump towards the ProJared thing, okay? We now have a soon-to-be ex-wife, woman, accusing a guy of some pretty similar stuff. He cheated, likely more than once, but that wasn't the real issue. The real issue was inappropriate conduct with fans, some of whom were apparently underaged, and that's an imbalance of power. These blow up because apparently cheating on your partner is not enough. There has to be some extra spice thrown in there for it to matter to everybody else. That's the first thing I have an issue with. The guy back in the Gamergate day was right. It's not about the sex. It's about the lie. If you have an open relationship, that's cool. I could never handle it. But those things are tough. And too often I find that one partner starts becoming dominant and one partner starts becoming submissive, and they no longer feel like they can say no anymore, even though they'd like to. And that's a commonality from Heidi O'Farrell's comments about, I thought I was okay with it at the time, but now that I think of it, was I really okay to not be okay with it? And that's a totally fair question to ask. This is why, An open relationship is an open relationship. Cheating is cheating. And even if you have a somewhat open relationship, if you cross lines that your partner's not okay with, that is cheating, period, end of story. They're the ones that get to say where their lines are. And I really don't see, other than the underage stuff, which I get is like the no pedo is a rule on the internet. It's always been. That's the one place you don't go. It's the one thing that's like, actually, it's not sacrosanct for everybody anymore. But you know what I mean? Like, even the worst trolls on the internet are like, pedophilia is disgusting. We're not talking about pedophilia here. We're talking about, I forget what the actual term is when it's like a 16 or 17-year-old. That's not a child. It's still really not cool for somebody who's like, I don't know how old this guy is, but he's been around for a while, so he's older. It's not cool hitting on, soliciting those sorts of pictures from underage people. That's predatory behavior. It's also not okay to cheat on your wife. And I don't think one thing should be seen as okay and another thing, oh, but that's more not okay. No, cheating on your partner, whether you're a man or they're a man or you're non-conforming or whatever, it doesn't matter. If you do something that hurts the person you have committed to, that should matter more than we make it matter collectively. I just want to say that. But there's more to it than that, because that extra element is what really makes these things catch fire. It happened back in Gamergate. It happened back in, it happened with this ProJared thing. I maintain that Gamergate would have died down fairly soon if other people weren't actively throwing gasoline on the fire with follow-up things that were framed to look a lot worse than they were. But it did start off as a sex scandal. And we have to question why that sex scandal was treated so differently when the genders were reversed. And I have a real issue with this, because it, in the long term, if a woman is not equally culpable to a man in issues of this, then she is not equal, because culpability, owning your actions, is a major part of being recognized as a fully functioning adult and a leader that anyone will listen to. Now, you guys who have watched this channel for a really long time know how I feel about that. That the whole issue right now is that the real issue in the West, the real lingering issue of gender in the developed world, is some people, men and women alike, not accepting women in leadership roles. That's the last big thing. And once we clear that, I believe that things like pay equity and things like that, they will follow, because, well, the pay gap isn't completely because of choice of jobs. The overall, the size of the disparity is linked to what jobs people end up going into, whether by choice or whether they're forced to. I mean, there's issues along race and all that stuff, but if we get collectively more comfortable seeing women as leaders, which means people who are flawed and are going to make unpopular choices, and it is fair to criticize them when they do that, we're never going to tackle this particular inequity, this workplace inequity. And it really shows there is nothing more emotionally visceral than a sex scandal. And that's why I'm focusing on these two things, even though, in fairness, there are some things that are not, apples to apples. There are certain things around the edges that that are different. The main contours of it, which is person cheated on their partner, partner alleges more going on, other people back up those allegations with stories of their own. Meanwhile, the Vic Mignogna thing is still freaking raging. People are still defending him. That's kind of weird. But when it's a coworker, they're just spurned and it's not fair. But when it's a wife, everybody kind of goes like, no, he did it. We totally accept that he did it. Ew, that's gross. Now, maybe I'm holding up the fact that maybe with the Jared Knobbenbauer, thing, maybe it's because there were photos. Maybe because there's evidence. The problem with the Vic Mignogna thing is I witnessed him being inappropriate with minors. Like I said, nothing that I would consider illegal, but I believe those people because I saw a real lack of boundaries. And to me, that's enough. Because I agree with Heidi O'Farrell. The real issue in all of this stuff is whether people are behaving ethically or is someone abusing their power. And unfortunately, it's always the guy who's seen to be abusing power and always the woman who's the poor victim. And I believe what Heidi O'Farrell's saying. People corroborated her story. Like, preponderance of evidence is very solidly in her favor now. I don't like that people are attacking the woman that Jared Knobbenbauer allegedly cheated with. She's not the one that committed to a relationship and then broke that commitment. But during Gamergate, people went after the guys who slept with the woman too. They just were smart and went quiet for a while. And, it settled down, whereas the woman continued to engage and so drew a lot of fire. At the time, it was her personal life is nobody's business. Now, Jared Knobbenbauer's personal life is everybody's business. People tried to say, no, it's not about whether she cheated. I disagree. I think that's a moral failing. I think it matters whether the person did or did not cheat, at least in my estimation of them. And if somebody cheats, it doesn't matter if they're a man or a woman. That's a scummy thing to do. Just because a lot of people do it doesn't mean it's not dishonest and immature. And I mean, there are levels to cheating, but still, cheating is cheating. And I'm seeing a lot of imbalances beyond what I've elaborated on here, but I think this is enough that it's fair to ask questions of, are we judging things the same way when it's a man cheating on a woman with some other unethical stuff on the side, and when it's a woman cheating on a man with other unethical stuff on the side? I think it's completely fair to question whether we are treating those as equal. And if we don't treat those as equal, then we don't have equality. Now, some other caveats involved are there's no assertion of wrongdoing by the game's press in this Jared Knobbenbauer thing, which means the press is going to be a lot less biased in terms of how they cover things because they're not in the hot seat, right? I mean, that's just... Gender aside, there is that to factor in. The reason I got on the shit list of so many people in gaming is because I was a games journalist at the time. I just had my one and only piece published in Polygon. People piled all on me. And I'm like, let's talk. I have enough confidence in my ethics that I can survive a discussion here. And so I went on Sargon of Akkad's stream twice, where I got called a whole bunch of nasty gendered names by the chat, not by him, but by his chat, which I knew was part of it. I wasn't born yesterday. I believed the person claiming ill treatment, claiming psychological abuse, which was something that was alleged during Gamergate, alleged during the ProJared debacle, because from where I come from, you trust but verify, and that's the trust part of it. I considered both, wronged parties in those disputes to be credible. That was traitorous, apparently, even though that's textbook. Like, if I find someone credible, I find them credible. Their gender should not matter. I am not a traitor to my gender because I believe a man with a credible claim of psychological abuse over a woman. That shouldn't matter if we're actually being equal. Unfortunately, it still does. And because I was like, no, you know what? People can scream and yell. That's fine. Because they're telling us they want us to be ethical in our jobs. They are making the argument that we have access and therefore we have power over the way they spend their money. So they want us to be accountable. And I accept that argument. A lot of the stuff that people with political leanings, political operative leanings made the people concerned about misdeeds among the games press. A lot of the things they made them believe were trumped up. They were not accurately depicted. They were made out to be a lot worse than they were. I still believe that. But I had no problem with people being extremely concerned based on the way it was being presented to them. This was heresy back in 2014, 2015. It destroyed my career as somebody who can work for any gaming website. No one would even respond to an application after that. I was completely blacklisted. So I came to YouTube and I'm doing okay. I say okay because games journalists don't make a lot of money, so I'm making a bit more money than I was making as a games journalist, an official games journalist. So now we jump to this, and I'm seeing very different treatment. And I'm like, wait a minute. Now, I think this is being handled correctly. I think, for the record, Kotaku is being very even-handed about the way they are covering it. They are covering everything as an allegation. They are publishing his comments. They are publishing her comments. They are publishing the comments of the person he allegedly cheated with. They are publishing the comments of the people who claimed that this was going on while they were underage. And I think that a lot of people just have a visceral problem with the idea that this guy was just openly soliciting nude pics from his fans. That is an abuse of power. It is. I have received nude pictures from some people. If people want nude pictures of me, go and look. I am not sending them back. Because, yeah, people get too familiar. And that is something you sometimes have to accept. You shouldn't encourage it. You certainly shouldn't start having a personal one-on-one. I'm being very careful with my wording because, yeah, there are plenty of sexualized pictures of me out there that I use kind of as jokes, but they're not like, oh, send me, sexy pics on the sly. It was stuff that's on the internet. They were professional photo shoots. They're out there. They're available to the public. They're not a secret. It wasn't something I took just for that person. No. But the other thing is the fact that Jared Nabenbauer was doing this flagrantly. When I can't even make a joke video on YouTube about correct breast physics without getting completely demonetized on the video. Even though it's my body, it's my choice. There was no nudity. There was just a lot of movement. But there was no nipple. That should be okay. To say that's not advertiser friendly after beer commercials showed us that imagery for decades, freaking spare me. Carl's Jr., freaking spare me. Like, no, the idea that this is not advertiser friendly is just absurd. But there is this double standard that, YouTube is, his subscriber count is dropping like a stone. But YouTube isn't doing anything about the allegations that platform allowed him to behave in a predatory way against minors. That's okay by them. That makes no sense. Now, maybe they're investigating and maybe they'll come to a different conclusion soon, but it seems like they're letting the markets just do their thing because, okay, it didn't happen here when it's a guy, but women who want to use their natural assets, non-augmented assets for comedy, oh no, that our advertisers don't want that. A guy who was soliciting dick pics from 16-year-olds, he is totally fine with us, but cleavage, oh God, no. That makes no sense. So you see what I mean? There are so many levels to this that are really cause for questioning. And it's not victim blaming to point that out. It's not bullying. It's not harassment to think what the guy did was disgusting. Now, it shouldn't be bullying and harassment to think what a woman in a similar situation who continues to respond to people in a combative way, that I believe should not be seen as harassment either. If it goes beyond that into doxing or other things like that, well, that's different. But somebody put up intimate pictures that the guy sent to him, that is a form of, compromat, for lack of a better term. It's not, a home address and all that stuff, but, yeah, there are lines. There are lines that should not be crossed. Don't dox, don't dox, don't dox. That's for real. The rest of it, though, it really seems to be handled extremely differently, and I know people are going to get mad at me for saying that, but that's why I have to say that, because men can't. Men cannot say what I'm saying right now and get away unscathed. Why? Because it's just different, and we all know it, and that's the problem. It is different, and it shouldn't be. A male opinion on infidelity and abuse of power should be no different than a female opinion on infidelity and abuse of power. And for the record, back during Gamergate, I did say that you shouldn't be getting on the journalists. They weren't the ones that cheated. They have a duty to disclose on paper, and I wish they did, But unfortunately, I have known plenty of women who slept their way into a story and got away with it. So it's got to be equal. I didn't think it was right, Don't harass the game developer about journalistic ethics. Don't harass the journalist for somebody's sexual indiscretions. Like, keep it in bounds. I know that's really confusing, but these things get confusing. Why is it okay that he cheated on his wife, but not okay about the soliciting lewd photos that everybody knew about? Like, that's retroactively not okay. One would think someone should have pointed out that wasn't okay before now. And I think that Heidi O'Farrell said that. She apologized for being somewhat complicit in that. And I give her real credit for that. That takes guts. To be as hurting as she clearly is right now and still have the presence of mind to say, why did I think that was okay? Why did I go along with it? Why did I make that seem like a good thing? It wasn't. Good for her. Good for her. That's a mark of maturity when she could just go, no, he made me and it wasn't my fault and he pushed me into it. And plenty of people would have believed her, right? Because he cheated, he's a dirtbag, so everything they say about him is true. She didn't do that. She owned her shit. She owned her part in it. And that makes her credible. And I'm not going to go back to Gamergate, but there were similar things that happened with the ex-boyfriend that equally made him seem credible, not least of which I caught the woman involved in a gigantic lie. Make of this what you will. I think there are some really lingering double standards that hurt men in the short term, hurt women much more pointedly in the long term. But, I know some MRAs are going to get on me for that, but we can agree both people are getting hurt. Both genders are getting hurt, which means men are getting hurt. We can agree with that. Maybe be open to the other side that long term, if women aren't accountable for anything, then people don't feel like they can trust themselves alone in a room with women because, well, they might falsely accuse. Two sides of the same coin. You have to hold women accountable. Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron. Patreon.com/LeannaK. People are gonna rip into this and make it a whole bunch of things it's not. But those of you that haven't done that and get what I'm saying, thanks for watching.